Hey there, Internet friends, and welcome to another episode of Season 2 of That Ultimate Video Game List Show. I'm your host, Trevor Starkey from ThatNerdySite.com, and this is the show where each season, me and a panel of friends try to create the ultimate top 20 video game list with two main bits of criteria. Only one game per franchise, and only one game per console. Joining me on Season 2, we have Scott White from Irrational Passions and DualShockers. How you doing, Scott?
Doing well. How about yourself, Trevor?
Doing good. We've had like a week to wind down from PAX at this point, so it's been nice. Been a little chill. I did not get the PAX pox. How about you?
Neither,
did you
I did
suffer
not.
anything? Excellent.
I have not. It's
Hooray.
been great, which is
Nice.
crazy because literally half of our panel came down with something.
Yeah. Pretty much all of the basically anybody that wasn't at IP or That Nerdy Site. Everybody
SDGC
crashed.
came
Yeah.
down, and Kelsey came down with something. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Womp womp. But hopefully they're all feeling a little better these days. Also, we have podcast aficionado Brandon Gann. How you doing, Brandon?
I'm recovering from last week, but I feel better now.
Okay. Last week on the show.
Yep.
The emotional toll.
When we broke Brandon, that was
I was going to
that
give
was a
you
good time,
all
everybody.
of you so much crap, but yeah, I
I
kinda
just
lost
like
the
to
heart
say
for
we
it.
released the real Brandon. We
we did, and
we
I
unlocked
pointed,
his heart.
I pointed this out. Like, we never would have come into this issue if he had sided with Aaron back in that first episode and vetoed Diablo 2. Like, Zyger would have already had his round 6 pick right out the gate, so he wouldn't have had to play Master Manipulator and all that stuff.
I hold
but
all of you in equal blame.
say Now the
for
show
every
is
reason,
entertaining.
and I'm leaving it at that.
I made the show more entertaining.
Yeah. Speaking of, we have Jonathan Zyger Landeros from My Xbox and Me. How you doing, Zyger?
I am doing great. A little sick though. I didn't go to PAX though, so it's not PAX pox. I think it's just
You've
cold.
just got the regular coronavirus.
Yeah.
Wah, wah. Hopefully not. And to any of our listeners, I hope you're all well as well. And then rounding out the squad, we have Aaron Mahler, who from the Scootcast, who's on spring break, and I'm very jealous of there being a spring break.
I am on spring break. It's great. It's wonderful. Also, I'd like to point out I did nothing wrong last episode.
You could have
I am
prevented it.
neutral party.
You could have prevented it.
I did.
Could
I
he?
couldn't have. I did nothing. There was nothing I could do.
Yeah, no, I don't see what he could have done.
Then guilty by
powerless
association. Whatever.
in
I hold all of you to blame.
I was powerless in that situation.
All right. So a little bit of housekeeping. If you like what you hear, please remember to rate, review, like, subscribe everywhere you can. If you're feeling extra generous, you can always support us on Patreon at patreon.com/thatnerdysite. If you're brand new to the show, this is a great time to jump in mid-season, actually, because this is kind of where we shift into phase 2 of the season. For the last handful of weeks, the squad has been kind of taking turns adding games to our list until we got our top 20. So we have 20 games on the list now that we will shift into the ranking portion of the show. So we're going to spend the next 4 weeks, this week included, kind of ranking 5 games at a time until we have our top game of all time / whatever and on our That Ultimate Video Game List show. So in this episode, we will be ranking games 20 through 16, kind of the bottom of our list. But still the top 20 games of all time. So this is kind of just more of a free-form discussion at this point. No more vetoes or any of that kind of stuff. And then the game that does ultimately become the number one will be retired from future seasons. So a real quick recap of the games that have made it to this point that are on our list. We have Super Mario Galaxy for the Wii, Halo Reach for Xbox One, Final Fantasy VII for the PlayStation 1, Diablo 2 for the PC, Kirby Air Ride for GameCube, Uncharted 4 A Thief's End for the PlayStation 4, Metal Gear Ghost Babel for the Game Boy Color, Persona 5 for the PlayStation 3, Kingdom Hearts for the PlayStation 2, Bubble Bobble for the Nintendo Entertainment System, Pokemon Heart Gold for the Nintendo DS, Grand Theft Auto 5 for the Xbox 360, Mischief Makers for the N64, Xenoblade Chronicles 2 for the Nintendo Switch, Super Smash Bros. For the Wii U on the Wii U, Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic for the Xbox, the only game that crossed over from Season 1 into Season 2 as well, Animal Crossing New Leaf for the 3DS, Minecraft for mobile devices, Stardew Valley for the Tesla Arcade, and rounding out our top 20, we have Resistance Burning Skies for the PlayStation Vita. So one of the things we learned in kind of season 1 was having a panel of 4 where you might have like a 2v2 kind of split made some of these debates a little tougher. So that's why this season around, I'm filling in more as a moderator role, and if we do land on a 2v2 split in this stage of the game, I will kind of weigh the arguments for the two games and try and kind of decide this is going to be number blah, and the other one will be number blah, or whatever the case may be. So I will kind of be the tie keeper if needed in the ranking stage of this game, but other than that, I throw it to the panel. I kind of suggested everybody kind of rank the lists themselves, so we have kind of some talking points to start with. So does anybody want to throw anything out there for an immediate number 20 pick?
Grand Theft
Brandon.
Auto 5.
Grand Theft. All right.
Grand Theft Auto 5. All
Mine
right.
is mine's Bubble Bobble.
Okay.
Yes, because I've never played it.
Yeah.
I
So we got a
Scott?
Grand Theft Auto 5. We got a Bubble Bobble.
Mine is Resistance Burning Skies.
Expected.
Okay.
Yo, mine is also Resistance Burning Skies.
Number 20.
That's fine. My number 19 was Resistance Burning Skies, so I'm okay with that being number
See,
20.
The reason
Yeah.
why I picked Bubble Bobble over Resistance is today more people probably know Bubble Bobble, and like looking at the gameplay, I think it actually holds up pretty well. Whereas Resistance Burning Skies, completely forgot that was a game when we talked about it when we were nominating it. Trevor even mentioned like, oh, he confused it for the Killzone Vita game, and it's like, I'm sure it's a great game, but it's one of the more forgettable Vita games, and I don't know about you guys, but Resistance as an IP, I don't feel is as strong as other games that are on the list so far.
My favorite IP, Bubble Bobble.
I mean,
Stronger
Bub and Bob.
IP, Bubble
You can't
Bobble.
go wrong with Bub
Yeah.
and Bob.
Bubble Bubble's getting a 4th game this month on Switch.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
What?
It comes out at the end of the month, Bubble Bobble 4 on Switch.
Yeah.
Like, Bubble Bobble is
Play
still
it.
an IP that lives.
Yeah, I mean, Bubble Bobble definitely has a legacy, given that it's 30 years old or whatever. Actually, 30,
my
30
God.
almost 35 probably, because I think it's about as old as me. Because it was, correct me if I'm wrong, if anybody knows, but I think it was an arcade game before
Yes.
it came to
Yes, it was.
Nintendo. So yeah, it was certainly from that era of like Dig Dug and stuff like that as well. So yeah, I mean, I can understand Bubble Bobble, lasting a little bit longer on this list, but so it sounds like there's at least some consensus around Resistance Burning Skies. Anybody want to really fight against that, or Brandon? Obviously, that would have been your pick, but you kind of it sounded like you were a little understanding of that.
Absolutely.
Though
Like
also,
two super quick notes. Number one, if people remember from the last episode, that was like literally my last pick, because if you guys went
Right.
PSP, I actually would have picked a game that I'm actually higher on than Resistance, but I can only speak to the games I know, and that was the only one that was still eligible on the Vita I know, so that's totally understandable. In my own personal rankings, that's like almost the bottom ranked game of the games that I've played, because as a reminder, when I ranked them 1 to 20, 1 to 7 were the games I played, and 8 to 20 were the games I didn't, and those were just simply
Wow.
ranked on easiest to convince me to play, and that's just the basis of what I had, and like that's why Resistance is 7 on my list, not because like, oh, I'm like super die hard about it. Like, I enjoy it, I really like it, but number one, it's like, yeah, that was the very last game we added this season, so it's like kind of grasping at straws. And number two, to Zyger's point about not being a strong IP, well, like I kind of am in consensus with that, because like the last game was, I think, this very one, if not Resistance 3 for the PS3, and it's been dead since. So yeah, it's not an IP that really draws a lot of people here. And besides, in this portion of the show, being an avid Season 1 listener, I know when to pick my fights. So there are games that I brought that I am much more going to fight much harder on in later episodes, but I'm completely fine with number 20, and to kind of what Zyger's point saying, I was not going to expect it. I legitimately, and this is not BSing any of you gentlemen, I was expecting this to go, if not the first I expected it not to get out of this episode. Let me just put it that way.
that's fair. I just remember, given how enraged you got. You had teased that you would be fighting a lot harder for your games in their placement on this list. So I didn't know if you were going to stick to that or if we were getting back to genial Brandon as well.
I've
So-
got my two the two games I brought that I'm going to fight the hardest on, and then everybody else's games I'm going to try just a little bit harder than necessary to convince you to keep in as soon as episodes as possible. So we'll see when we get there.
All right. Well, then, yeah, it sounds like Resistance: Burning Skies. We will go ahead and throw that on the list here at number 20. So that was a. I'm admittedly a little surprised because just given Scott's level of obscurity in some of his picks, I definitely thought he was going to have the number 20 of this season. But I can appreciate kind of Resistance: Burning Skies. One of the things that Brandon brought up there that if you don't know kind of off the top of your head, just maybe think about for conversation later, is so Brandon said you've played 7 of the games on this list.
Correct.
I'm kind of curious where everybody else falls in terms of how much of these games they've actually played versus not. Because that certainly, as I think we kind of discussed throughout the first half of the season, if we've got a lot of games here where only one person has played them, it's going to be tough to get consensus on, okay, which of these games is better. So
I've played 15 of the
nice.
20.
I've
You were
played
probably-
14.
Okay.
I got him beat by one game.
There
I
you go.
played 18.
18.
Oh, wow.
All right.
Okay.
We are in the presence
That's.
of
I
a
mean,
master.
And that makes
I
that
would have
makes sense because
expected
most
Yeah, I
most
would've-
of the ones I haven't played are Scott's.
Yeah.
Same.
Yeah, I would have expected Scott to have played the most of the crew. I'll need to kind of look and count. Since I didn't have to do this whole exercise this time around, I did not bother counting which ones I haven't played yet. But I will do that as we discuss number 19. Any suggestions for the next game to kind of get the axe on the list?
I'm gonna throw it back out, Bubble Bobble.
Okay.
That was my number 20.
Yep.
And we switched it for my number 19, which was Resistance: Burning Skies.
Yeah.
So
If we're going to talk,
as new excited I am about Bubble Bobble 4 for the Switch.
if we're constantly going to bring up Bubble Bobble on this particular episode for just everybody else's personal reference, I have it ranked 12th on my list.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
12th?
12th. And
well,
kind of a
That's so much higher than I thought Bubble Bobble was going to be.
and to that
Bubble
point,
Bubble's worth it.
and to that point,
Yeah, once we get into Brandon's non-played games, as he talked last week, it's like he ranked them based on how easy or hard they would be to get him to play them, and so
Exactly.
Bubble Bobble
And-
probably has a low barrier to entry.
and to
Oh, yeah, I'm sure it's
Okay.
and I kind of
it's on
follow,
the mini NES, right?
yes.
Yes, yeah, it is.
And
Yeah.
to kind of for your benefit, Trevor, you'll understand this more than my fellow panelists, but I did the write-ups that you had the panelists of season 1 do in between seasons
Yeah.
to kind of help order my thoughts as to why I wanted to order some things one place, some things another. And so Bubble Bobble is literally, and I have my note right in front of me here, it's the one entry on the entire 20-game list that I have a complete neutral stance. No positive feelings, no negative feelings. Like, if someone put it in front of me and said, play
Hell
this, I'm like,
yeah.
okay. If I never see it again, okay. So, like, I'm completely neutral on Bubble Bobble.
Play it with
Completely
a friend.
neutral on Bubble Bobble. That is a win for Scott.
Play it with a friend. Just saying. Especially with the new game coming out, play with a friend. That's all I gotta say. You'll have a blast.
Yeah. Do we have any other suggestions for 19, or is there kind of a consensus building around Bubble Bobble?
For
So-
me, oh, go ahead.
You first.
Okay. For me, this is 20 and 19 are the two games I haven't played on this list, and I know I'm going to be outvoted, but for 19 I put Kirby's Air Ride just because I haven't played it before.
I respect
So-
your choice. I'm gonna fight that though. Kirby Air Ride is so good, way better than Bubble Bobble, in my opinion.
I've heard
Kirby-
really good things about it, so I don't disagree with you, but because I haven't played it, I can't agree with you either.
Yeah, I understand that.
So,
Yeah, we that was kind of my strategy last time around too. Was like, all right, well, these are the games I didn't play of the two on the list, so I can appreciate that mentality. So we got a Bubble Bobble, we got a Kirby Air Ride, Any Zyger, what did you want to throw out there?
So for my number 19 pick, I actually put Mischief Makers and I put Bubble Bobble at 18. But those two are like, I can flip either or, so I'm not for or against Bubble Bobble being number 19. But my number 19 pick was Mischief Makers.
Mm-hmm.
And both of those are because I haven't played them.
Yeah. So sounds like probably Bubble Bobble is gonna go, if not here, then at 18 probably. So
Probably.
we want to just
Because I
cut
have
the knife on Bubble Bobble here.
if everybody's down with that.
Yeah.
But for reference, for the two games we just brought up for my personal rankings again, I want to be completely open. I've got Mischief Makers at 18, Kirby Air Ride at 15.
Oh, interesting.
All right. Well then, so I guess maybe the conversation is Bubble Bobble or Mischief Makers. Is there a strong leaning one way or the other for 19?
As someone who's played both and voted for both, I would put 19 at Bubble Bobble and then Mischief Makers at 18. Because I really, really enjoy Mischief Makers, plus two of us have at least played Mischief Makers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Mischief Makers is higher on my list too because
Yeah.
I played it.
Oh,
and I
okay.
It's higher on my list as well, but if it's
It's
between...
it's my number 17 because that's the first start of games that I've played, and like, yeah, that's my number 17.
Okay. So then maybe Bubble Bobble here at 19. Does that sound copacetic?
I'm good.
Yep.
Scott, do you wanna say any parting words to Bubble Bobble?
Especially with the new game coming out, please play it. Like, this is a fun game to just play with your friends. Have a drink with some friends or just hang out. It's a great couch co-op game. Just give it a try. It's charming, it's simple, but it is a lot of fun, and there are a lot of cool level designs for it. So
The new one coming to Switch is launching at $40, isn't it?
yes.
Okay, so yeah,
Bubble
lower
Bu-
barrier to entry,
Yeah.
and it honestly looks pretty good. I was literally
Yeah.
considering picking it up.
Yeah. Bubble Bobble
I mean-
for Friends is the name of it. So it's
I was gonna
made by
say, like-
Taito, so good company. So
I would hope a Bubble Bobble game coming out like this day and age wouldn't be a $60 release, but
It's
Same.
$40.
that's what I'm saying. Is like at the same time, Nintendo wouldn't surprise me by doing that. So the fact that
See,
it's
that's
40,
why I asked.
even there, like I would, having not really looked at Bubble Bobble 4 and all that stuff, like how many puzzles it is, like that's still something I would instinctively think of as a $20 game probably these days. But all right, if they want to go $40, more power to them. But okay, cool. So Bubble Bobble there at 19 with the plea to play Bubble Bobble 4 when it comes out on the Switch here soon. Then 18, are we still sitting at Mischief Makers then, or
Okay, so Scott, you said you had Mischief Makers at 17, so I'm curious
I-
what your 18
I had-
pick was.
no, I had-
Aaron had it at 17.
My
Yeah.
18 was Metal Gear Ghost Babel exclusively because I've never played it.
That's my 19.
Yeah.
I've played Mischief Makers, so that went above Metal Gear for me.
Got
personally.
it.
But I'm okay with those being switched if more people are campaigning for Ghost Babel to be higher on the list. I'm fine with that being switched. I don't really care.
So Brandon, I heard you say it was Metal Gear Ghost Babel is your 19.
Yep.
So maybe so it sounds like maybe the conversation is around Ghost Babel or Mischief Makers. And Scott, again, we fall to both of them being
Yeah.
your picks. So do you have one that you would want to argue more for? I imagine you probably have a stronger case to argue for Metal Gear, given that you wanted that one in as your round 2 pick.
Right, and my Twitter handle and all my handles are Solid Snake 120. So I have a big,
Yeah.
I'm a big Metal Gear fan. I would put Mischief. I have Mischief Makers.
Brandon or Zyger just connected the
yeah,
dots.
yeah. There you go.
Makes sense.
I have
Like
Mischief
snakes.
on my list. I have Mischief Makers at 15 and Ghost Babel at 14. So I would put Mischief Makers at the 18 spot, and leave Ghost Babel for now.
Okay. Any objections to that from the panel?
Yeah, on my list, I had Metal Gear Ghost Babel at 17, and Mischief Makers, I had it at 19, but our 19 spot was for the Bubble Bobble. I personally think Metal Gear was a better game because, like, even though I haven't played either Mischief Makers or Ghost Babel, I looked into it during the off time and read reviews and saw how people talked about the game. And Metal Gear Ghost Babel, to my surprise, was critically acclaimed. And like Scott mentioned when he nominated it, it got a 10 on IGN, and so many other publications were praising it as one of the best Game Boy Color games on the market. Like, okay, I was pleasantly surprised by how much people enjoyed this game that I've never heard of.
Yeah. See, you guys gave me crap, and I'm still adding good games. It's just games people haven't heard of. Damn it.
I mean, like, also the Game Boy Color, that's like grading on a curve anyway.
For what it's worth, like, the stuff Ghost Babel did is really impressive. Like, they fit an entire view. They fit the radar on the Game Boy Color screen. It's technically incredibly impressive, on top of having a really good story, like a full Metal Gear Solid story, like with all the crazy zany twists and everything. So, like Bubble Bobble and Mischief Makers and everything else, if you are a fan of Metal Gear, give this a shot. It's super good. But
This
I
might
would
be
put
harder to find.
yes, but I would put Mischief Makers at the 17 spot if it was between Metal Gear and Mischief Makers.
You mean the 18 spot?
Yes, 18 spot.
Okay. So 18 then good for Mischief Makers for people?
Yeah.
It's 18 on my
All
list,
right.
so all for it.
All right. 18 it is then. I'm locking that in.
I just want to say
Yeah.
my 18 pick was Uncharted 4.
Oh, okay.
We're gonna. Oh, this is gonna be. Yeah, Uncharted is my 16.
Okay.
So-
It appears
This-
that Knuckles can't be heard on mic. All right.
Okay.
I mean, I heard something. I didn't know what that was.
Listen, when we get to 16, I get. Well, I mean, if Mischief Makers is going in, or Metal Gear is 17 and Mischief Makers is 18, that means we're at 16, right?
So are
Yep.
we? Do we? Let's. What I would say is like if the conversation is Metal Gear, Ghost Babel at 17, but if it sounds like there's also potential tension in the ranks around Uncharted as a potential 17. So I leave it to you guys to kind of figure out where we want those to go on this list.
Okay, so
Here's
You
my
first.
argument, Brandon. Here's my argument. Uncharted 4 is a great story, and it's a wonderful story, but it's not a good game. Like it's like as a game, like playing it, it doesn't feel good. No Uncharted game feels good, and so, like I will commend its story, which is why I put it not lower, but it's also I don't like the gameplay of Uncharted games. I
Most
don't think they're good.
fundamental disagreement I have had this
It's
entire
just not good.
time.
It's formulaic. That's my problem with Uncharted games. They're great as movies, but I feel like they're super formulaic, and that's why I could never get into them. Like I appreciate their production values, their voice acting, their stories, like you said, but I just get bored with the story
oh wow,
myself.
I
I
didn't
get
get bored with the
excuse
story.
me.
I
I
just,
mean,
like-
excuse me. I get bored with the gameplay. My bad.
Yeah.
okay, okay.
Yeah. The
I get bored
gameplay
of
is
the
just like
gameplay. Yes.
the gameplay is impedes me from experiencing the story. Like it is an active roadblock to get me to the next cutscene, and that's just bad, in my opinion.
I have
Well,
so
Brandon,
not
do
looked
you have-
forward to this half of the episode. I thought my anger would be coming now, not last week.
We're gonna break them again, everybody.
God.
reference Uncharted
I
number
think you
2
can
on my
you can
list.
have a
so-
little more sympathy for where Logan was in season 1
Oh,
as
trust
kind of
me,
the
I do.
the Naughty Dog outlier.
Trust me, I do. I was there. I listened. But yeah, to the critiques about gameplay in Uncharted 4, basically when it comes, and this is something I learning from season 1, when it comes to this ranking process, and it's kind of the one thing that bothers me, not for anyone's fault, but just by the very nature of the structure of how the show works, is there is absolutely nothing that I could possibly say to anyone that has as negative of feelings about a game I brought. And I am in a weird position where most of the games, like literally all but one game on our entire 20-game list, I do not have a negative feeling or anything like that. So to sit here and I'm hearing Roadblock to getting to what you enjoy most about the game, formulaic, just takes you out of it, all these kinds of things. That is something that is your experience. I cannot understand. Legitimately, I'm unable to comprehend that, but that is not me saying that you are wrong in any way. That is just me saying I am unable to actually mentally come to the same conclusions, have the same experiences that you had, because I'm just, for me, in terms of that gameplay, in my opinion, to the point of it Uncharted just as a whole, I do feel, as I kind of think I said back in when I presented the game, it is basically all the best ideas of Uncharted in terms of traversal, in terms of stealth. They actually fixed the aiming from Uncharted Drake's Forum, because you want to talk about bad aiming, that's Uncharted 1, but Uncharted 4, they fixed that a little bit. The companion system that that Naughty Dog introduced into The Last of Us, I think, really was further refined in Uncharted 4 to make it feel like, oh, this is someone who can actually help you in a fight when necessary, especially when you're dealing with some really, really the hectic situations. In terms of level design, I really do feel like it's actually the best in terms of Uncharted for the very reasons of the gameplay to explore, especially when they add the addition of a grappling hook and the waist-high grass, not only just for stealth, but also for tactics whenever you're in a firefight. And it's all those kinds of things that really combine it together. Granted, I see Uncharted 4 as kind of like the KOTOR and the Mass Effect 2 of Season 1. Kind of like sit here screaming and fighting, but the inevitability of kind of the next episode being, yeah, okay, it's the auto default. But in terms of this first episode, like I'm going to fight tooth and nail that. Hell no, it is not in this first episode quality. Second one next week, okay, like that I can understand. But like in terms of the bottom 5 of the 20 we have brought, that I cannot stand. Like I'm not gonna let that one go down without a fight.
I mean, that is what this is all about. And one of the things that I hope people get from this, either both as like panelists but also as just any listeners, is like these are the kinds of conversations that like the big sites have when they're doing like, let's rank the top 100 games of all time kind of stuff. And it's like, how do you compare Uncharted 4 to Metal Gear Ghost Babel? I don't know, but we're trying and we're coming up with like, it's all like subjective at the end of the day anyway. But yeah, it's especially when it is, oh, people haven't played one or the other, it becomes obviously a much harder conversation to have, but still it's a fun experiment at least. Zyger, I want to kind of hear where you're sitting with these two potential titles, and if you have anything else that you would want to throw into the mix here.
I just
for
want
the
to
17 and 16 slots. I
just want to make sure I'm understanding this right. Both Scott and Aaron are saying Uncharted 4 for 16?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's so yeah, we haven't even settled on a 17 yet. I
thought Ghost Babel was 17.
I also thought that.
As did I.
If we want to, okay. if that I had not locked that in, but if we want to, if everybody's okay with that, sure, I can put that in there. Then I was still looking at the conversation around 17 is Metal Gear Ghost Babel 17, is Uncharted 4 17, or do we have other options on the table? But if people want to if people want to go Ghost Babel 17, I can do that.
Yeah, we had started this because I had mentioned that my number 18 pick was Uncharted 4.
Yeah. So yeah, we hadn't. So in my mind, I had not locked in a 17 yet.
Okay.
And I know because like Brandon mentioned at the top, like your number 20, Brandon, was Grand Theft Auto 5, right? So there are definitely games higher on people's lists that we haven't addressed yet. It was just a matter of trying to find the consensus around these.
Yeah,
so
and that's why I have not, other than that initial start to our episode, that's why I have not brought up GTA 5 since, because I understand that GTA 5 is probably much higher on pretty much the entire panel's list, and I know for a fact I'm such an outlier with my negativity on Grand Theft Auto just as a series, not just necessarily 5 on its own, but just GTA just as an entire thing. And speaking of formulaic, that just inexplicably jumped into my mind, and it's like, I can actually see that for myself when it comes to GTA in some aspects. But going back to the topic at hand about whether or not Uncharted 4 is 16, I would be happy, and I will let this debate die if it was on 15, because again, it does not belong to be in this first episode, because it is number 2 on my overall list, and I love it so much. To kind of tie into what I was saying earlier, there are 2 games that I'm going to fight a whole heck of a lot harder for that final episode. This game is not one of those 2, because I did not expect it to reach it to the final episode. But I am kind of shocked, not necessarily that it's brought up early, but it was brought up in the first episode. I was expecting it to be the 15 or 14 option next week, and that one I was kind of preparing for, but to say that it's 16, I'm like, nah, there are other games on here I would much rather see in that 16 spot before we move on and put the default 15 to be Uncharted 4.
Yeah, and again, that a lot of this comes down to just what is the mix of the panel, and I think we identified kind of when Uncharted 4 got put out there that this is not necessarily a Naughty Dog centric panel or a panel with like a deep love for Naughty Dog outside of yourself, Brandon, and then
it's not pro-charted, if you will.
That's not true. That's not true. Last of Us is one of my favorite games of all time.
Okay.
I agree with that.
I don't like Uncharted 4.
Okay.
I also don't like Crash Bandicoot.
I don't fault you for that one, Zeiger. So I guess let's go ahead and go back around to because again, with Scott having brought Uncharted 4 up, that moved the conversation away from Metal Gear at number 17. Are people wanting to put Metal Gear at 17, or do we want to kind of further this debate? Do we want to throw in another game into the mix, into this conversation? Obviously, Brandon wants to put something else out there to try and get Uncharted onto the next episode. So I open the floor back up. But currently on the dock that I'm working off of, I still only have up through 18 with Mischief Makers.
So for me, I have Uncharted 4 at number 14. My number 16 pick was actually Star Wars KOTOR. I don't know how you guys feel about that.
I'm not cool with that one.
Oh, well, all right.
Scott wants to fight for KOTOR a little longer. Okay.
See, my only reason for putting KOTOR that low on the list is it's one of those games that I haven't played, even though I own it on Xbox, and I just haven't gotten around to actually playing it yet. Mm-hmm. I understand it's a great game, but at the same time, I understand Uncharted 4 is also a critically acclaimed game, and even though I only played the multiplayer aspect of it, I do understand why the story narrative aspect of Uncharted 4 is as praised as it is. I completely agree with both Aaron and Scott. It's one of those games that's like, oh, the gameplay is not that great, and you mostly want to just focus on the story. But it's one of those, like, I thought the gameplay was fine for the most part from what I experienced just through the multiplayer alone. And I can see how it works with the story, but I don't know. I just have it set up higher than I did Star Wars KOTOR because it is a much newer game and it feels more polished in my opinion.
KOTOR is my 15, but I would put KOTOR above Uncharted because I'd rather start playing KOTOR than go back to Uncharted 4. Like every game I put above Uncharted 4, I put on Uncharted 4 at 16 because in my mind, kind of to how Brandon was going against his games where it's like, how easy you could convince me to play it. If there are games above that I haven't played, it's because they're games that I wanted to get to. Like Diablo 2, I've never played, but I really want to play it. KOTOR is above Uncharted because I really want to play it, and then I think everything past that I've played. But you really like. I stopped playing Uncharted 4 because I just couldn't get through it. It was just annoying.
All right, my personal opinion. That is a fair assessment. Not necessarily one I agree with. I certainly fall more into Brandon's camp as well as I've been a fan of those games and I enjoy the gameplay of them, but that is just my personal preference as well. So it sounds like then we might still. I mean, I don't unless KOTOR kind of creeps its way into the conversation here. It sounds like we're still looking at Metal Gear and Uncharted 4 as the 17 and 16 in the conversation right now, unless
I'm
somebody
curious,
else
Brendan,
throws a curveball out here.
Brendan, where did you rank KOTOR?
Number 4.
And Uncharted was which number for you?
2.
Okay.
Question, because I have forgotten who said it earlier. Who had Kirby's Air Ride within their bottom 5 or 7 picks?
I
Their
had
bottom-
Kirby's Air Ride at 19 just because I haven't played it.
Okay.
Kirby's Air Ride is in my top 10.
Same. It's my number 10.
It is also my number 10.
All right, let's just go ahead and lock in episode 3 start.
Yeah, here we go. Episode 3, Kirby Air Ride, number 10.
We will see when we get there if it's still in play at the time or whatnot. But all right, yeah. Unless Brandon, you want to kind of try and like trade some wheeling and dealing to keep Uncharted 4 on longer. It sounds like we might be heading towards Metal Gear at 17 and Uncharted at 16. That's how I'm reading the room right now.
As am
but
I.
feel
Like,
free to convince me otherwise.
As I said earlier, especially when talking about Resistance Burning Skies, it's like, when I'm presenting stuff, I kind of can, like, know when it's like, oh, yeah, I kind of can tell that this is not going to last long. Which is, I am actually, because it got brought up about 5-10 minutes ago, that I was actually surprised that nobody decided to veto Uncharted 4 after the reception it had after I made my initial pitch when I suggested that. So I'm actually surprised that everybody left it. But, that's kind of why episode 5, the way it went. Okay, I need to let things go. Anyway, but
I had lost my veto at that point, or I would
Yeah.
have.
Oh,
I
there
think
you
people
go.
were
Yeah.
saving it because they didn't know what crazy shit I was going to throw out there. So
That's
yours
what
was
I
a pretty
was waiting for.
yours was a known quantity. It's like, okay, I know Uncharted. Who knows what the hell Scott's going to... Oh, he's going to throw out another
mean-
Bubble Bobble.
I mean, because you hadn't. So Metal Gear came right after Uncharted 4 in the conversation. So you hadn't started throwing out weird things yet. You'd only given us Diablo 2 at that point. If anything, it was maybe Zyger was still. I was still expecting Zyger to be more of the wild card at that time. But yeah, it was still early enough in the game that
okay.
people wanted to kind of protect their vetoes in case they needed it.
Yeah, I
Except
thought
for
Uncharted
me.
4 was a good game, so that's why I didn't veto it.
And yeah, that also comes down. That's certainly also a factor. Is like you don't veto something because you don't think it's a bad game, but when it comes down to ranking, it's like it might still be low on the list. That was me with like, I don't know, Super Mario Galaxy 2 in season 1. It was like, I don't think that's a bad game, but I don't care enough to veto it, so I'm leaving it on the list. But it was one of the lower games on my personal rankings, I think, or something like that.
Yeah.
So,
Two.
yeah, that's I totally appreciate the idea though of like, oh yeah, if especially if Aaron still had his veto, if things had played out differently. Scott, you were gonna hop in with
Yeah,
something?
I'm curious. What are people thinking about like swapping it, having Uncharted at 17 and Metal Gear Ghost Babel at 16?
Scott,
no.
Scott,
Can I?
I'll
just,
give it to
can I
you.
just-
Yeah,
can I just
absolutely. Let's
say,
do it.
You can have two. If you guys didn't know, you can game link cable 2 copies together and have 2 people be Solid Snake fighting each other in a best of 3 match. Just saying. Uncharted doesn't have that. You can both be David
Okay,
Hayter.
Rick.
Scott is just trying to break Brandon even more. I love it.
Right?
And I'm sitting here, and I'm just split because I'm sitting here thinking, okay, I have Kirby Air Ride at 15. He has it at 19. I'm fine with having it at 16. And if that's the case, I will put Uncharted 4 at 15.
You know what?
But as both Zyger and Aaron have said, they have it at 10, and they will fight that harder, and that increases the episode's length by 45 minutes. Then I look on the other side, and I'm thinking, okay, could possibly Zyger work for me? I'm looking at the list, and I see, there are several games I have high on my list that Zyger brought, but in terms of what he is passionate about taking, I don't know if it's worth him agreeing to try and stick Uncharted 4 at 15, because that's my entire point. I'm not saying it should be in the top 10 at this point. I just wanted it at 15. That way we can wash our hands of it.
Yeah, I have it set at 14 at the moment, so...
I mean, worst case scenario for you, Brandon. Here, and I say worst case scenario now that Scott has floated the idea. Worst case scenario, Uncharted 4 is the 17th best game of all time.
No, it's
It's
not.
still pretty. It's still a pretty good game.
See,
Zyger, what's your 16 again?
my 16 was Star Wars KOTOR, but you guys feel stronger
KOTOR.
about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And then my 15th pick was actually Kingdom Hearts 1.
Your 15 was Kingdom Hearts 1?
Yeah.
Oh, this
and
is
then
gonna be a long
and 14
4
is Uncharted.
I will have none of that.
It's like we're all allies and enemies at the same time on so many different things.
We're frenemies.
Yes, and I'm just the evil mastermind. Mwahaha. All right. So
Kingdom Hearts is your. I'm
it
so
sounds
mad.
like we've got there's now an argument to be made for Uncharted 4 at 17 and Metal Gear Ghost Babel at 16.
No, there isn't.
I mean, Scott made it, so
I'm just,
I don't care if it's 17. I just don't personally. I know that Brandon, you're fighting for this to be in the second episode. I don't think it should make it to the second episode.
I don't think Grand Theft Auto 5 should get out of this episode, but you don't see me fighting that hard to keep it off.
I love that Scott put into the Discord chat a screenshot from Metal Gear Ghost Babel. Just said it's just so colorful.
And
look
Data.
at how
Yeah.
much cool, and look at how much
Nah,
cool
I'm
stuff
with Scott. This is
they've
cool.
Like,
They
this is
put on
surprisingly
the-
good for a Game Boy Color game.
right. It's why it got a 10. It's a masterpiece.
Did it Uncharted 4 also get a 10?
Uncharted Uncharted 4 got like a 9 on IGN. This got a 10. I'm just saying we could go by IGN standards.
One source. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, just search
Okay,
review
so-
on IGN.
I'm
Same.
with Brandon that Uncharted 4 should be higher than Ghost Babel. So we're 2-2, so
Higher
this is
than-
a Trevor choice,
Higher
right?
than Ghost Babel though, which could make it 17 and 16.
Okay. I have a way that I can probably make all of you mad right now. Okay.
Oh, let's hear
Yay.
it.
Here we go. Uncharted over Kirby's Air Ride, 16-15, and if the tiebreaker comes to 17-16 being Metal Gear Solid versus Uncharted, hey, we're at 2 separate 2-2s. Trevor, would you like to break these ties?
Am I allowed to use my veto?
Hold on. Brandon. I will relinquish my Kirby's Air Ride being in the top 10 and put it at 16 instead of Uncharted 4.
I will.
If
I'm sorry. Continue, please.
I'm making deals here. I don't know where Persona 5 is on your list.
Let me pull up my numbers here.
Can I know where Persona 5 is on your list before we go this far?
Revisiting the Persona 5 deal from last week. I love it.
Exactly. I am
If you remember, it was 13 at the time, but because I had to put Resistance, it dropped it to 14. However, because of all of the situations, I will be damned if Persona 5 is not in the top 10 at the minimum.
All right.
Okay.
Here's what I want. I will relinquish my Uncharted 4. Kirby's Air Ride can be number 16. That's fine. Uncharted 4 can make it to the second episode. If you help me get Persona 5 into the top 5.
Okay, hold on,
Dude.
time out.
Look at I just
Aaron.
posted a picture. I have Persona 3 list or Persona 5 at my number 3 spot. You don't need him.
That's
Yeah,
still
Persona 5
listen.
is my number 2 game.
Oh, okay. Then never mind.
You do not need to throw Kirby Air Ride under the bus for Persona 5. 3 of us got
I didn't
you.
know that. I didn't know that. So sorry, relinquished.
You're so close there, Brandon.
Okay, let's see here. What games do I have ranked? Let's see.
I'm just gonna put this out there. I would rather play Kirby's Air Ride for the first time than play Uncharted again. So I will fight for Kirby's Air Ride.
I would
Yeah.
rather blast Uncharted 4 through my
Oh,
speakers
okay,
right
here's-
now while I
here,
light Diablo 2 on fire.
So
Dude, you're not gonna. Don't bring Diablo
Just
2
play a
into this.
Vuvuzela.
Don't bring Diablo into this. It didn't do anything to you.
I saved it from being vetoed.
If you forced a gun in my head and had to pick a game that I would put under Uncharted 4, other than the games we've already picked, This is for you, Brandon. It'd probably be GTA 5.
If GTA 5 was to be... Look, again, this is all to say Uncharted 4 is at 15. If anyone is willing to budge on that, this gets completely dropped. I put Uncharted 4. It's my second favorite game of all time, but again, I have 2 other games I'm going to fight for that top 5. If Uncharted 4 is at 15, my entire argument stops.
I don't know if it's going to make it out of this episode there,
All right.
Brandon.
I will
I have an idea.
prolong this bastard.
It just depends on what gets switched for 16.
Brandon, I will make a deal with you. I will put GTA 5 as number 16 if you put Kirby Air Ride at least number 10.
Well, since everything is ranked between 8 and 20, and GTA is the only one I have negative feelings on, you can imagine how fluid I am between 8 and 19. So there you go.
Okay, so is that the deal that's on the table now? So we're back to Ghost Babel here at 17, and then GTA 5 at 16. Is that what I'm hearing people can live with?
I don't know about GTA 5 at 16. I mean,
Would you?
no, I'm just saying. I enjoyed
Would you-
GTA 5. I have that at 12.
I have that at 4.
It's
how
my
about-
number
how about-
13.
If I threw this out here, Scott, where would you fall? If GTA 5 was at 17 and Ghost Babel made it up to 16,
I'll take that back.
Does that?
I mean,
Does that
that's
sweeten the
cool,
pot?
but at the same, like, at this point, I just want it above Uncharted. I mean, it's just for the thrill of it, man.
Real?
You're going to break Brandon's heart.
Brandon no longer listens to Irrational Passions
No.
because of
I'm-
a vendetta against
I
Scott
just,
White.
there's not a single
I'm
game on this
fine.
list than what we noticed that I want to play over under Uncharted 4.
And I feel that
Maybe
way about
GTA
GTA 5.
I mean, I'm fine with GTA 5 coming. I'm just glad it's made it this far. I knew this was going to be a very heavy Scott-focused episode. Okay? So, no, if to clear
I mean,
things
yeah. So
up,
far,
Okay. Hold on.
so far, the dominant conversation is all Scott and Brandon games.
All right, so
I
hold
put-
on.
yeah.
Scott, I will
Yeah.
make a deal with you. We can put GTA 5 as 17 and Metal Gear at 16 if you put Kirby Air Ride in top 10.
I mean, let's see.
Top 10. Top 10.
I have to.
At least number 10.
I'm
doesn't have to be that high.
consulting- I can't do it.
Oh.
No, I only say this because I literally haven't played it. And my top 10 are like games I feel really strongly for, and I can't bump them just not for Metal Gear. Like, I love Ghost Babel. I think it's super impressive, but I'm fine. Like, and with GTA, my GTA 5 is a little higher. I'm fine having it be Metal Gear at 17, Uncharted at 16. I'm
okay with Uncharted being a 16 too. So
that's where it
Weren't
sounds
we
like we're
just
still coming
here
back
10
to
minutes ago?
and
Okay,
I mean, yeah.
okay, but now
were-
Brandon and I are both saying GTA 5, and Scott and Aaron are saying Uncharted 4, so that means Trevor has to pick, right?
So then are we locking in Metal Gear Ghost Babel at 17?
yes.
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
That's where we're putting that one. Okay, so Metal Gear Ghost Babel at 17, and then so Zyger, you're sacrificing your own pick of GTA 5 here to 16 to court favor with Brandon.
Yes, to get Kirby Air Ride at number 10.
Enjoy
I
number
mean,
10, Kirby.
because that's going to play a significant factor in my decision if I'm having to split the tie. Is that if you're already willing to give up your own game, that your own game will probably make the take the hit. So, but so it sounds like Uncharted 4 or Grand Theft Auto 5 are the two that are in the running here for the number 16 slot. Is that correct?
Yes.
From my understanding, yes.
Okay. Then I mean I'll go ahead and let each side kind of make their case. If you have like any final thoughts on why one game should be ranked over the other, and then yeah, I can certainly weigh in.
All of us wants to go
the
second.
The entirety of GTA 5 Online deserves to be deserves to be higher on the list just by itself, not including like the pretty great single player. And Uncharted 4 is just not that great.
All right, that is one for the Uncharted 4 here at 16. Brandon or Zyger, do you have a counterpoint?
Question, and this is completely
Yeah.
subjective. And once again, I'm making sure I'm doing this correctly. That this is to you, Trevor, as being the adjudicator. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, more or less, you're trying to sway me one way or the other at this point.
I have a question for you, and it pertains to both games, but it's the same exact question.
Okay.
For you, what is memorable about both, and what is more memorable over the other? Any aspect applies.
For me, I would say the story is memorable in both. I really enjoyed the story of Uncharted 4 as kind of the culmination of the Uncharted series, and I also really enjoyed the kind of switching narratives and the wide encompassing story of Grand Theft Auto 5. I personally don't spend too much time in multiplayer, so I don't have like. I am very impressed by the support that Grand Theft Auto Online has, but it's not something I've personally engaged in the same vein that I haven't really personally engaged in online multiplayer of Uncharted 4. So yeah, I would say story for both of them is probably a driving factor.
And the second half of that question is, what's more memorable to you and why?
Of those two?
Exactly.
I mean, I would say Uncharted, but that was because I'd already had 3 games with those characters, 4 if you count Golden Abyss, to kind of that was building a narrative on. So it's not an apples to apples comparison, certainly, but yeah, that would be the argument there that I would make.
Okay. And for the final question I have pertaining to both games, since I, like you, am not really a multiplayer-focused person, I'm more focused on single-player, what would you say is, in terms of enjoyment, not necessarily in terms of gameplay, but what would you say just overall enjoyment across multiple aspects of both games? Which one is more replayable? Which one, to kind of insert my own little criteria when we ranked these lists, which one would you be more easily convinced to revisit? How much of a investment would you put into going back, and how often would you do that for both games?
Objection, leading.
This isn't Ace Attorney.
This is such leading.
Right?
This is bull.
I mean, the weird thing is, I would be much more eager to go back to Grand Theft Auto because it's been so long since I've played that one at this point. And it's one that like I kind of been itching to go back and play recently anyway.
It's on Game Pass.
So yeah, sure, it's on Game Pass. I didn't even catch that. But I also own it on like PS4 and stuff. It would take me like 4 hours to get it to reinstall on my PS4, but I could certainly do that. But like just the open world sandbox of Grand Theft Auto is, I would say, that makes it infinitely more replayable than the more narrative focused Uncharted personally. So I don't know if that went the way you wanted it to go.
No, that was a legitimate, I do not know your full stance on GTA 5. That was legitimately trying to know what it is about GTA 5 for you personally as to why you're leaning one way or the other. Because as you have said multiple times when I introduced the game and earlier in this episode about leaning more into the Uncharted camp, we've already touched on those points several times. So that's why I asked those questions, to see why you would be weighing GTA 5 and what it is specifically that your criteria is when you're selecting between both of these games.
Yeah, and that's and so I am, like I said, I'm trying to pull my own personal thought out of the conversation and really kind of go based on the arguments you guys are making for one game or the other. Because I, especially on a case like this where I'm like, it is, 6 and 1, half dozen the other for me. Personally, I would probably prefer Uncharted 4, but at the same time, I am leaning. I would say I'm leaning towards Grand Theft Auto 5 here being at 16 because Zyger himself, who submitted the game and nominated it, has gotten behind putting it here at number 16. So to allow you and Uncharted 4 to live another day into the next episode. So from the arguments alone, I
to get Kirby
towards-
Air Ride at number 10.
Can't forget that.
Yeah.
That's the important part.
Scott,
I
you
would
hopping
just I want to make my case for why I feel GTA should go above or get a better ranking on this list than Uncharted. I think Uncharted is a fantastic narrative experience. Like, it's a great movie, but as an entire package, gameplay, story, everything, and I don't play multiplayer either, so I'm speaking just on single player. I thought as an entire package, GTA 5 is a much stronger single entity than Uncharted is, whereas Uncharted, for its graphics and its strength of story, I think it does falter somewhat in terms of its kind of formulaic gameplay structure. And if this hadn't been the fourth entry in an existing series, would you think as highly of it?
Which question is that, to me or
I
Trevor?
mean,
Or whoever. It's like GTA 5
Yeah, it's-
has no connection to the previous games. It's just its own thing. How much of your love for Uncharted 4 stems from the fact that it is the last of the Nathan Drake Uncharted? Like, how much does that play into your memories and how much you take from it? Because story-wise, I think Uncharted is a better movie than a game package, whereas GTA 5, I think, has a really interesting story, really unique characters, much like Uncharted, but it has a better gameplay flow to it. It is that open world. You can do a lot of things. It has that replayability factor. So I guess for you, Trevor, as a standalone package, if you can, how would you judge Uncharted 4 without the previous games compared to GTA 5?
yeah, it's I would say like an impossible choice. It's the same kind of argument of like the, I've posed the argument, and I know it's a bullshit argument as well, of like, Breath of the Wild wouldn't be nearly as revered if it wasn't in Zelda. If that was just a nondescript game, it's so much of it gets by on its charm of being Zelda. So I don't think you can say how much of Uncharted 4 is it as a standalone product versus it as kind of a culmination of a series. But like as a standalone, like as its standalone entry, I think because even if I'm trying to compare it to the other ones, saying like, I think it does everything that the other Uncharted games do, but better, means I'm still putting it against and in the spectrum of Uncharted. So even as a general third-person action-adventure game, I think it is a very great third-person action-adventure game. It gets compared to like the Tomb Raiders a lot, which I think is another weird comparison because those tend to be more of the like sandbox open world kind of check the boxes and find all the things, find all the unlocks, but compared to the very narrative-driven Uncharted 4. But at the same time, like the story of Uncharted 4 is largely standalone because it's built off of a character that had never been introduced at that point in the brother. So you have like a few characters that have a history and there is more to them. But if you jumped into Uncharted 4 as your first game, you would still get enough of that story to be able to, I think, follow it along. It wouldn't be as resonant as it would if you've followed those characters for the rest of their journey. But since the central relationship of that game is Nate and his brother, I think it still works as a standalone in that regard. But I see your point there as Grand Theft Auto 5 is also it like all the Grand Theft Autos do like the Final Fantasy thing where they just kind of pick up and it's a completely new setting and a completely new cast of characters, so that it has its own kind of beast there in that regard. I mean, it comes down to, I think you guys have made some very strong arguments for Grand Theft Auto 5, but I still come down to the fact that Zyger is willing to give it up in exchange and play the game and try and get Kirby's Air Ride higher on the list. The fact that he's giving up his own game here to the 16 slot is what's going to put me into putting Grand Theft Auto 5 here at number 16 is where my tie-breaking vote falls. So that's where I guess we're going to land here. So you have an issue, take it up with Zyger because he sacrificed the game, not me.
Hey, Zyger, can we switch GTA with Metal Gear then? If you don't care.
I mean, I made that deal with you and you said no because I wanted Kirby Air Ride at number 10. And you said you couldn't do that.
So yeah, so that's why he's not going to put Metal Gear,
Okay.
or why he's not going to put Metal Gear up at 16.
I hear
so
you.
Now, I just want to, for the
That
record,
works.
I absolutely think GTA 5 is way better than Uncharted 4. Everything that Aaron and Scott said, completely agree with. I'm only doing this just to secure Brendan's vote for Kirby Air Ride at number 10. Literally, everything about GTA 5 is superior to Uncharted 4. No question.
I would like to state for the record to all listeners, if any of you are surprised Zyger is willing to do this, you don't know Zyger very well.
Dude.
Kirby Air Ride is amazing.
What a
You're a damn lobbyist.
dude.
I am playing the game because Aaron says he's doing number 10. If I get Brandon to agree number 10, it's happening at number 10, Scott. 3 against 1. We win. I am playing the game.
Jesus Christ.
I think Zyger, you may have picked the wrong calling here. I think you are a little master manipulator here on this one, but that's gonna do it for. That's gonna lock in this episode with number 20, Resistance: Burning Skies, number 19, Bubble Bobble, number 18, Mischief Makers, number 17, Metal Gear Ghost Babel, and number 16, Grand Theft Auto 5. So we have three of Scott's games take the hit, one of Brandon's, and one of Zyger's.
I got one
Okay, I
game
got 5
left.
more.
Yeah, you.
I got
you
one
only have
game.
You have Diablo 2 still on the list. So good luck on that one, Scott. Yeah, good fun episode, everybody. And yeah, I fully respect Zyger, you playing the game there, and basically giving up your own game to give Zyger, or to give Brandon his little win. Obviously, we're heading into next week's first game on the list is going to be Uncharted.
Lock it in.
4.
Do we just want to start at 14 next week?
No, we'll still go. We'll go through the motions. It's just kind of a foregone conclusion that we'll start there. So the conversation will mostly start at 14, but so yeah, be thinking about kind of where you guys want the game to go next, and yeah, that's so that is going to do it for round 1 of the ranking portion of the game. Thank you everybody for the fun and engaging conversation. You can follow all of the panel. You can follow Scott at SolidSnake120. Anything you want to shout out, Scott?
Let's see. This is coming out this week, Friday.
Friday.
So
Yep.
be sure to check out our latest episode of RPG University on Earthbound that just came out yesterday.
Nice. Who'd you get for that one?
Nathan Brandt from the NES, or the New Entertainment System podcast. So,
Oh, cool.
yeah.
Very cool. All right. You can follow Brandon at GamesGan. Anything you want to shout out, Brandon?
And say 2 things. One, my customary shout out I've been doing. The group I want to highlight and shout out this week is the ladies over at What's Good Games. And a special shout out to Miss Rihanna, she being the newest announced member of that group. So congratulations to her, but a super fun group. And secondly, I just want to say, technology isn't that advanced yet, but I want to just kind of reach through the computer screen here. No hard feelings, gentlemen.
Oh, yeah.
Like shaking all of your hands.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
you know, this is a lot of fun. Fight as hard as I want to, but, you know, I got, as Trevor put it, my tiny little victory, and I'm fine with that. So, yeah, this was a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to next week.
Yeah, I will say you seem to have successfully played the game a little bit better than Logan did when he was running into these same kinds of issues. All right, you can follow Zyger at Zyger1337. Anything you want to shout out, Zyger?
Just check out my xboxandme.com and my Xbox and Me pod on Twitter, because I got a promotion and I now help run the Twitter account. Sweet.
Very exciting. All right. And you can follow Aaron at Aaron_Muller. Anything you want to shout out, Aaron?
Yeah, go check out Scoot Gang at Scoot Gang Tweets on Twitter. We just put out a new schedule for all of our cool content updates. When you're listening to this, later today there will be a new episode of RPG and Chill with me and my boy Brandon, and we're Flirple, and we're going to be talking probably about Final Fantasy VII Remake again for the 900th time.
As you do.
As I do. Yeah, that was our entire last episode. And then this past coming Friday, our newest episode of Indie Spotlight will be coming out, talking about a really cool indie developer whose name escapes me right now. But go check it out. It's a cool interview. I don't run Indie Spotlight, so I always forget, and I'm a terrible person because of it. But
I understand that. I never know what movies they're talking about on that wannabe film class. So
Yeah.
it's always a surprise whenever Ben sends me over the audio file to upload. So yeah, I can fully appreciate that. You can follow me at Trevor J. Starkey, and you can follow everything that Nerdy Site is doing over at That Nerdy Site. The thing I will plug is go check out all of our PAX East content. We're still rolling it out. I imagine by the time this episode goes live, we'll still be rolling out a trickle of things here and there. But go check out our stuff. Go check out our friends over at Irrational Passions. They had a ton of great stuff as well. And Dual Shockers and pretty much everybody else that was at PAX East 2020. It's a great time getting to be out there with everybody. Shout out to the panel that Scott was gracious enough to include me on, which is available to everybody. They can find that as well. So
Yep.
yeah. Is that, did you guys put that on the RPGU feed?
Yep, RPG University on all major podcast services. It's episode 15.
Very cool. All right. Well, yeah, that's going to do it for this week. We will be back next week for games number 15, which is going to clearly be Uncharted 4, Thief's End, all the way up through game number 11. So I'm looking forward to seeing kind of where the conversation goes from here, because once we get past Uncharted, it seems like we're kind of in unknown territory at this point. So
You could almost say Uncharted territory.
Hey!
I could have. Yeah, that probably would have been a better thing to say. But I failed you.
I got you.
I failed you all. Thank you. Thank you for being the backup. As always, stay nerdy and be good to each other.